presenters weren't able to make it to the session today. So if you could just go and select a different session to attend for this time slot.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, I was just making sure. Don't forget to unmute yourselves before you start talking.
It's okay. All right, I'm unmuted. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm muted. I'm muted. Somebody's not muted. I'm muted. Is that better?
Still a little echoey, but
Okay, we're all muted. Sorry.
It's usually because that you're on two devices at once.
Those of you who are joining the session,
Okay.
the presenters were
Is that
unable
better?
to attend. So if you would like to choose another
yes,
session
that's
to
better.
Okay.
attend this time slot,
All right. So we have been working on vocabulary K through 2. And this is the names of the people that were in our group. Our essential questions are, what strategies can I use to help teach vocabulary to beginning readers? How can I keep students engaged in vocabulary development and learning? How do I involve families in teaching vocabulary at home and at school? Our theory and research, the reading strategy book by Jennifer Saravallo, and some other suggestions that we used in our classroom that may work for you are Word Nerds, Words Their Way, and the Vocabulary Handbook. All right, so one of the strategies that we used from Jennifer Saravallo's book was Cinnabons. And I actually used this in one of my 5th grade classrooms. And when you come across an unfamiliar word, insert a word you know that would fit the sentence in a larger context. Read on to check that it still makes sense. And these are the prompts that it gives you in the textbook. What's going on so far? So what might this word mean? Try a word. Does that make sense? Stick in a word that would make sense here. Would that word keep the meaning of the sentence? What's another word the author might have used that would still make sense? So they used words from their literature circle text that they were reading, and they used a thesaurus to find some synonyms for those words. And then this is also with my classroom, the 5th grade group. This was from Jennifer Saravallo's book on page 307. It was 11.8, word part clues, prefixes and suffixes. Create word family charts with the students and have them, I think that was a typo, sorry. And in the classroom to serve as a resource as children read and come to unfamiliar words. Try to think aloud during the read alouds or mini lessons when you come to complex or long words that they have familiar word parts. And what they did is they found words that had prefixes or suffixes in their literature circle textbooks, and they were finding prefixes and suffixes and breaking down the meanings of words. And then this down at the bottom was from Jennifer Saravallo's book, The Word Family, the Prefixes, Examples, and Meanings. Okay. Go ahead.
This was Word Ladders, and we had used this for our family literacy night. It was really successful and the kids loved it. They are helpful in building vocabulary skills as well as helping with phonics, decoding, and spelling. Students are adding, replacing, taking away, and rearranging letters to make new words. And then clues in the form of definitions are added to help extend students' understanding of the word. And you can see that our word ladders for K through 1, second and third, and fourth and fifth. And I've linked those books to where if you wanted to purchase them through Amazon, you can. The one that I did for our family literacy night was the night before Christmas. And I've also linked those if you want to download it, examples for your kids to do as an activity. But they really enjoyed it. I would read the clues and they would figure out the meaning, which there's the vocabulary part, and then we would spell it out. Of course, for the younger ones, the letters are already written and you would have to put like the beginning sound or the middle or ending sound for those. And then there's another example for first and second graders, and then third and fourth, which, I mean, if you have a kindergartner that is on a higher level, you could use the higher worksheet for them if you wanted to do this like in a guided reading group or something like that. But it was a really awesome activity for the kids. Labeling for letter recognition. This was Eugenia Wilson's slide. She is our exceptional teacher for special ed, and she uses labeling for word recognition as a functional necessity for understanding that words represent objects. And this provides extra guidance for students who may need additional support, such as lower performing students and students with individual education plans, IEP. She has these in her classroom, and like, for example, brushing your teeth, it just shows them a visual of how to actually perform the task. And then down here, for her nonverbal students, they have these picture cards and they can point and communicate with the teacher or the assistant inside the room. There's also picture schedules for them. So that way they are on a consistent schedule and that they know where they're going. And this can also be used in a regular classroom also for students that need that visual cue.
Right, with story vocabulary words, our students love to learn new words, especially in kindergarten. We really don't know all the time what vocabulary they come in with, but we help try to develop words that they don't know and enhance their understanding of words that they already do know. We use the Fonda and Pinnell reading series. With each story, we look at vocabulary words and pick out words our students may or may not know, and then the story vocabulary is presented during instruction. We use additional readings of the book to show how the pictures can connect, or the vocabulary can connect with the picture. We do mirror words to enrich, that way it gives it helps them aesthetic to learn it more. Can you get that to go down? Can you scroll down just a little bit? But these are two examples of the books. Also with homophones. Oh, hang on, sorry. We're going to go back to homophones.
Go ahead.
With homophones, this was a level 5, multiple meaning words. It's also from Sarah Balla. This is when a word
isn't making sense
within the context, it might be a multiple meaning word. So
we
we
read the
context
context
clues
clues
before and
before and
after.
after.
Think about the word that's being used and choose a definition that makes sense in the context of where you came across the word. So there's some prompts in here that go also with the homophone. Is how is the word being used? What is the meaning you know for that word? How do you know it can't be that meaning? What's another meaning that might make sense there? And then that's one meaning of the word, but does that make sense here in this particular setting? And what other strategy did you use to figure out what the word is if there's not a picture representation? Maybe that would help you with that.
This activity was done by Ms. Jervis, our second grade teacher, and she gave them this worksheet that had those sentences, and they had to figure out which word.
We actually played the game Scoot.
And they played the game Scoot, so they had to figure out which meaning of the word made sense in that sentence, and then they wrote it on their little paper. There were the answers on their little paper.
You want me to do it? Okay. Family involvement. We have different examples that we use that parents can use at home and at school. For instance, reading daily at home, let children see you as a reader, set a time and place for your children to read, like a comfy chair, quiet place, visit public library regularly, encourage your child to write letters, thank you notes, journals, ask your child questions about the story. Who is the main character? Where, when is the story happening? What do you think will happen next? What is the problem? And is there a solution? At school, is important to have like family literacy nights. I do reading backpacks with my RTI students, magnetic letters, reading response, write journals, mirror words. We do that a lot with our whole brain interactions. Yep. Graphic organizers, word picture sorts, acting out words, read alouds, and reading buddies. There's monthly parent updates that a lot of our teachers do, like sending out home notes and things like in the reading backpacks, like having, make sure you have daily conversations with your children, talk with your kids every day, just giving them little tidbits of information. They hear the repetitions of words and how these words are being used in daily conversations. The more oral language and the experiences that they have, the more words and meanings of these words they will learn. The more words that they're exposed to, the better they will become at having that oral vocabulary. And actually, when they become writers, they'll have that vocabulary in their writing. Daily read alouds. When you read to your child, it provides them with opportunities with unfamiliar words and conversations related to books, and have that prior knowledge and experience and background knowledge when they can use that. Also with direct vocabulary instruction, play games with them, have repeated vocabulary instruction, list vocabulary words around the house, play games such as roll and play. I actually, send things like that home with my kids in their reading backpacks and things like that. This was a sight word roll and write that I sent home with some of my kindergarten, first grade students that were having a hard time with being able to read some words. So we put those picture clues in there. And here are some of the iReady diagnostics for vocabulary for kindergarten from Ms. Grant, Ms. Hobbs, if you want to discuss those.
At the beginning of the year, our iReady diagnostic for the vocabulary portion, in my class, I had 0 that was on grade level, and 13 that was below grade level. And keep in mind, last year was COVID, so a lot of our students either did not have preschool or did the virtual learning, and we all know that was very difficult for teachers and parents. So I had none that was on grade level. By December and January, where we were trying all of these strategies and using interventions, whole groups. I mean, we had guided reading groups. All teachers were on board. Our principal implemented that, and I think it has worked wonders. We had 5 that I had 5 that was on grade level, and then 8 that was still 1 grade level below. But they had made gains and they have progressed so much.
Mhm.
And the end of this year, we'll have another diagnostic, which
Monday.
yeah, this coming Monday.
Mhm.
And I believe that our scores are going to even be higher.
And on my data at the beginning, I just had 1 that was on grade level and 10 that were below. And then by the second diagnostic, it went up to 3 with 8 below. And I believe when we do our diagnostic on Monday, it'll be even more in the green than the yellow. So.
This was our diagnostic for 2nd grade. And she had 2 groups. One group, she had 2 students that were on grade level, 9 students that were 1 grade below, and then 1 student that was 2 grade levels below. And then on the second diagnostic for 2nd grade, of course, they went up from 2 to 8, and then 4 students 1 grade level below, and 0 students that were 2 grade levels below. And then in her 2nd group, for the first diagnostic, she had 2 students on or above, and that went up for the second diagnostic to 4 students. The first diagnostic for 1 grade level, she had 5 students, and then in the second one, she had 3. On the 2 grade levels below, she had 0 on those.
Some of the other resources that we use are vocabulary that have flashcards, videos, quizzes. And I know K through 5, we all use vocabulary. Vocabulary games, reading and responding to text. And we also use Fontes and Pinnell, K through 5. And these are citations of different things that we used in our presentation. That's about it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so save your questions if you have questions for them to the very end. So we're gonna go ahead and let our other group go. So thank you so much. I'm so sorry, Stephanie, we cannot hear you. You are still muted.
Hello,
No.
everyone. We'll try again.
Thank
Well,
you.
I'm Stephanie Lyons, and I am presenting with Tori Chafin and Nikki Witt. We're from Boyd County. Thank you. Sorry for not unmuting. And we are talking about how we are trying to implement vocabulary strategies in math class. So that puts a little different spin on ours. I actually am a math intervention teacher this year. It's first year doing that. And so trying to fill in not only gaps in computation and fact fluency, but also students' math vocabulary, which is a struggling area anyway. And you put the COVID learning loss on top of it. And so we see a really big need for this. I enjoyed the presentation from the last group. I took a lot of great notes, and hopefully we have something for you that will also benefit your students that you didn't see in the last presentation. And of course, we had our justification for this was due to the COVID learning loss. Nikki, if you want to talk about that any more before we move on.
Yes, I've noticed I'm in 3rd grade this year, and the handwriting, of course, is a massive issue that I'm having to really back up with. And more than handwriting, vocabulary is just, the gap is so large. And I'm not saying that it was anybody's fault. I'm just saying that by not being in the classroom, they didn't get that direct relationship with vocabulary. as we all live, in the same area, pretty much, we all know that our children are on limited exposure, and we don't get to take, we haven't even got to take many field trips. So we can take them many places to expose them to places where we could talk about new vocabulary. So it has really left a gap. I've noticed I've had to really dig into the books that we have pictured on the following slides to get some ideas on how to expose them without overwhelming them, because my issue was I wanted to get everything caught up and then do everything that I needed to do, but I just had to back up and really slow down and realize they can't go further until they have the base. So I would say from my experience that yes, this has really limited their vocabulary development. So this was a very well-timed project for us to do so that I could learn some ways to develop their vocabulary.
I keep losing the presentation. Are you all still seeing it?
No, just trying to share it again.
All right. Nikki, do you want to share it from yours?
I can. Hold on just a second here.
I don't know why mine keeps cutting out and closing out. It might be because I have 50 tabs open on my computer. I'm not sure.
It happens.
Let's see. Oops.
While she's doing that, I can go ahead and talk about the next slide. It's just introducing the text that we use. Just like the last group, we used Word Nerds and A Teacher's Guide to Vocabulary Development Across the Day. And we have those books linked also in case you would want to purchase those. Excellent, excellent books. Brenda Overturf is my new hero. She is the vocabulary queen. Oh, I see it. It's coming. So if you are interested in implementing vocabulary strategies in your classroom, highly recommend both of those texts. We also got a lot of resources from Reading Rockets, which is just online, and that's a fantastic free resource that you can go to for lots of reading strategies and vocabulary. And there are the two texts. And then we went into background and planning for vocabulary instruction before we got into talking about what we've been doing in our classrooms. So if you can, are you able to go to the next slide? All right, so one of the things that Overturf et al. From Word Nerds, what they recommend is all students, your ESL, but also your high-performing students, your tier 2, tier 3 struggling students. Every student needs focused, sustained, and intentional vocabulary work. We talked earlier before the presentation started, before a lot of people started coming in. I think vocabulary is an area that does sort of get overlooked just because, especially in lower grades, we're so focused on getting kids to just be able to decode and comprehend their text, their fluency, and maybe sometimes vocabulary kind of gets pushed to the side or not focused as much. And I think that's one of the reasons why all three of us chose to focus on vocabulary with our KRP work, and especially in the math classroom. You know, when students are trying to read through word problems, sometimes they don't even understand the vocabulary. What's a quotient? What's the product? They don't even have that in their repertoire. So that was one reason why we wanted to focus on vocabulary. And the three types of vocabulary words that we would encounter and what we want to expose kids to are, of course, the tier 1 words. And these are the words they see all the time and they pretty much know. So our tier 2 words, those are more challenging. They're going to see those words across multiple texts, multiple settings, on tests. And that's where the majority, the meat of our vocabulary instruction would want to come from, are those tier 2 words. But then we also have the tier 3 words that are content related. And so there's certainly a place for the study of those words as well. And when you're choosing vocabulary words to study, of course, there's a lot of planning that goes into vocabulary instruction. And just as we talked, the tier 2 words, those are the ones that are going to make up the meat of our instruction. Brenda Overturf recommends choosing words that are going to give you the most bang for your buck. So we use STAR testing in our district. I know a lot of people use iReady, there's MAP. But in your planning, you can get some of the vocabulary words. Those resources should be provided. I know they are with STAR. So we can look for those and get those identified. And we want words that are going to be important and have utility. So again, we're going to see those across domains, across settings and text, their instructional potential and their conceptual understanding. We want words that are going to offer accuracy and relevance when we're describing concepts and ideas. And we have a link for you on Reading Rockets. Reading Rockets is another, I've talked about them, but they have a lot of great articles too that can help enrich our background knowledge for our teaching, and a lot of resources we can share with families as well. We also want to choose content area words like we talked about. That's your tier 3 words. And if you use a commercial reading program, there's value in the word list that they offer. So you've got that as your resource. Our district uses Journeys through Pearson, and
I think I messed up here.
oh no, you're fine. You're fine. We're
Okay.
ready to move to that. So once you've introduced or planned out your words, then you're ready to start your routines. And this is just another kind of visual that we included there with a 9-step process for teaching your vocabulary. So like we said, choose your words. You're going to introduce those words to your students using vocabulary journals. And as we will show later, we used the Frayer model. That was the one that we kind of latched onto. And so you can put that in your journal, or just have like a separate booklet that you staple your Frayer models together and make a journal that way. You're going to use synonyms and antonyms, just like the last group talked about. Word Nerds is really big on incorporating synonyms and antonyms, or sometimes you'll see them called examples and non-examples. So we want kids to know other words that mean the same, and then we want them, of course, to know words that mean the opposite. You're going to create anchor charts to have in your classroom that students will have that to refer back to. And that's going to be something you're going to do together. Of course, you're going to have whole class building practice, and then you're going to have your small group and independent time to meet students' individual needs. Overturf recommends having vocabulary celebrations. I went to a session this morning about book tasting. Oh, what a great way to celebrate your vocabulary after working through those steps. And then, of course, you're going to have your assessment. And of course, your assessment would be going on all throughout these process or steps as well. So I like to have a structure, especially when I'm new to something. I really thought those 9 steps were very helpful. And here are some examples of the Frayer model. I loved for kindergarten, you can see there on the left how one teacher adapted the Frayer model to do it as letters. So coming up with words that begin with a letter. So that's a nice way to adapt it and bring it down and get the students, even those little ones, used to this graphic organizer that's so powerful for organizing how they think about letters. And then eventually we'll move that into word studies. And then there's a Frayer model there in the center that you can use for any type of word, tier 2 or content related. And then a sample there on the right. And we have 3 different websites you can go to that will allow you to download some Frayer models for free. So, all right, and I'll let Nikki, this is one of her little specialty areas here with ELA. I'm more the math person right now, so.
All righty. I do not teach math, so I'm the reading and writing. So for me, I looked at it from the perspective of an ELA teacher. And as I mentioned earlier, we had noticed a big gap in the vocabulary development in our school. And it was here before COVID. And like I said earlier, we do believe that this is due to a lack of exposure in our district, due to low socioeconomics, but it has increased, of course, since we didn't have the in-person instruction, we didn't have the field trips, where we could take them to places and develop that rich vocabulary. So by using the text, like we mentioned earlier, Word Nerds and a teacher's guide to vocabulary development across the day and other resources such as Reading Rockets, we've been exposing the students to a wide variety of vocabulary that they otherwise may not have been exposed to. And then we had talked about how we were building the vocabulary through math instruction. Because it sounds funny to say that, you know, vocabulary and math, but, you know, these are just little guys. And in third grade, they're looking at you with these confused faces. Like, I don't understand what you're even asking me to do, much less the processes of how to solve the problem. So we did place a big emphasis on vocabulary and math in our school and throughout the district, as we have the math specialists this year. And they are making great leaps with their understanding, because they're understanding the words. Because the students would get on there like a STAR test and they would see these vocabulary words for math and they would shut down because they didn't know what the word was. So they certainly didn't know how to solve it. And their confidence just went completely down and they just picked an answer and moved on. So now that we're able to get back in groups and do centers, the students are feeling more confident. They can talk to their peers and they can start sharing what they're understanding with other students and help the others with the mathematical concepts. And we always start off a lesson regardless if it's reading or writing or whatever subject with vocabulary. We review it, we talk about it, we look at it. If it's possible, we touch it. And we use an anchor chart, of course, and we have anchor charts everywhere, regardless if it's math, instruction, science, social studies, or reading. And having a focus on math vocabulary has been really good for our children because it's created an environment for our little mathematicians. And so they are beginning to flourish and feel more confident.
Hey, Nikki.
Yes.
It's Tori. I just want to add that I'm the math teacher, so I have a different perspective on the vocabulary too. And one thing I've really noticed is that, like, in their written explanations, because we've placed an emphasis on the vocabulary, their written explanations of how to solve problems has just been amazing. I've also noticed it in number talks too. They can verbally explain what they're doing, like, and use the right vocabulary to explain it. So that's been one really great benefit from placing such an emphasis on vocabulary, even in math class.
Yes.
That's exactly right, Tori. Thank you for jumping in there. Tori has a little one, so we weren't really sure if she would have an opportunity.
Yeah, sorry guys, I'm trying.
Jump in and share. So we told her not to stress there, but anyway, thank you for jumping in. One thing that we did do is, and I'm sure there's been other presentations about journals. I've been watching some during the day, so this appears to be across, the board. We also did the journals where we have the students write home to their parents every week. They can tell them new vocabulary words in math, new vocabulary words in reading, tell them what they wrote about. They can tell them anything, but they have to discuss something about vocabulary. Of course, we're not getting every one of them back, but we're getting about a third of our class. So for an initial, for a startup, it's not too bad for what we expected. So, and we're hoping to continue that and maybe get bigger buy-in. And even if we can do it digitally, I prefer it in an actual journal. But if that works better for parents digitally, then we can do that as well. And we just sit at home on Friday, so they have all weekend to discuss it, and then they send it back.
And there's an article that we linked there. If you have families that you'd like that are interested, or you have an opportunity with a family night, that you can share that with them. It's about growth mindset, and we find a lot of families, especially in math, feel like, well, I wasn't good at math, so therefore my child can't be good at math. And so we want to break that cycle. And that was a great article if anybody's interested and wanted to share that with their families. One thing that we hope to implement next year to get our more buy-in from our principals is called the Principals Book of the Month. And we learned about this through our KRP work. We had a course that we took throughout the school year. And with the Book of the Month, you find a book carefully selected due to its rich vocabulary and content. And you get your principal, or you could do librarian, anybody. It could be the custodian's Book of the Month, or all of the above. But they record themselves reading the book using, we like Screencastify in our district, any other screen recording platform would work. And of course, those vocabulary words are going to take focus through the reading and after the reading. And then we send a QR code home and a letter that families can scan to watch the reading of the book and participate in some activities. And then for students who don't have anyone at home to do that with them, of course, we would find time in the classroom, or again, a mentor in that school, maybe the custodian, cafeteria worker, whoever can connect with that child, and we'll make sure they get that exposure and in the classroom if they don't have anyone at home. So that's one thing we hope to continue in getting our principals more involved with our vocabulary work next year. And here are some wonderful literature selections that you could use. These are recommended in the Word Nerds text. And so each of them lends themselves to different vocabulary. So there's 2 pages of those if you're interested in having some resources, some places to get started. So that's just a couple more. And then some ideas for assessment. And of course, we know all assessment should be informative assessment, ongoing throughout any study that we're doing. We watch our students' growth over time. And some of the ones that we learned about in the text were thumbs up and thumbs down. That would be in your beginning phases. If they understand the word, have they ever heard the word? Of course, we have observations and checklists. We'll be using anecdotal notes. We're going to analyze student work, teacher questioning, as well as student generated questions. And here's a nice little checklist. This was free online that you could do with students as you work with them one-on-one or in small groups. And then there's a couple of links, once again, for some other assessment resources. And this is a blog from Brenda Overturf. It just has a little bit more resource on assessment, just in case anyone's interested in studying some more. And here are just a few samples of some of the work we've done in math with the Frayer model and vocabulary. The one at the top is about the penny, and the definition from a kindergarten, it's actually kindergarten class. From a kindergartner's point of view, 1 cent, and that it's money and the coin is round. And I think that's an example of something you could buy with some pennies. I believe she said that was a candy bar. And a non-example would be something you couldn't buy with pennies, and that was a car, actually. So I guess you could buy a car with pennies, but it would take an awful lot. We have a book about quadrilaterals here that the students made, and there's a couple pages there in the picture. And there's a couple more samples on another slide. This is a word web that we did for the word sum, the answer to an addition problem. That's a 2nd grader there. And then we have one of the word journals at the top where we're going through the operations and learning product and quotient, and then equation. So I know we're about out of time, so we hope we could hear from some of you what your favorite strategies were for teaching vocabulary, but we may be out of time on that. So
no, like you still have like 1 or 2 minutes left.
Okay.
So
yeah,
anyone wants to share, go ahead, put it in the chat. You can ask them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and dip out. So go ahead and just ask them. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Sherry, you may have been here at Summit Radio.
So yeah, we're still in the learning phase ourselves. We are not the experts, and we hope to continue and increase and improve our vocabulary work into next year and beyond. So if anybody has any additional wonderful vocabulary strategies, we'd love to hear. Someone said, can I purchase Word Nerds book from Amazon? Yes, we have the link for it if you would like to get that from Amazon. So the Freyer model has been fantastic for my math students. Their confidence has really increased, and they actually look forward to our vocabulary work, which is really awesome. They're using words in sentences and learning to spell the words. I keep word journals in my students' chair pockets, and words are listed alphabetically, but there's also space to add words. So I can add these math words for them. And then when it's time for them to write about the math, I don't have to spell for them anymore. They've learned to use their word journal, and they pull that out and just go through ABC order. And that's been really helpful and exciting as well. Oh, yes, nice, Kimberly. High school. Yeah, the Freyer model, I had never thought about it from the math aspect. And kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, it's so adaptable, and it really does help the students organize those words in their brain and make connections. So. Any questions? Yes, and it can be used for any content. So, and it's free. I mean, the templates like we've linked, there's a lot of different types and styles of templates, and you could do a blank one and customize it for however you want it to be. So. We appreciate your attention, your time. I know everybody's learned a whole lot today. I've really come away with some excellent resources I'm excited to share with people in my building and district.
Yeah, I have to. And Fairview, your presentation was great as well. And
absolutely.
Probably about time for us to go to the next one, I guess.
Yep. Thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you guys.
My daughter has prom today, so we've been KRPing and promming simultaneously today.
I can't wait to see her pictures.
She's been really laid back about this one because it's Ashland's prom, not Boyd County, and she's going with just one of her dear friends. So she hasn't put a lot of pressure on herself, which has been nice, but still yet.
Well, it looks like it's just
all right.
So.
Whew. I don't know why my computer, I couldn't get it was like froze the presentation. I was like, are you serious?
You guys did so good.
I think it was good. Tori, sorry, I didn't want to be like, Tori, do you want to share?
I know.
I know. No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
To your slide, I was like, I don't, and you could tell, I mean, at the beginning, I was, kind of tripping over stuff because
wonderful. You did. So go enjoy your daughter.
All right. Yes. Thank you.
You guys have a good day.
Making it through this with me. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.